This episode of Show Off Showdown is sponsored by JYS.
That's right, Show Off Showdown finally has an official sponsor, and it is none other than JYS. If you've seen my product review videos, you'll already know that JYS makes great quality gaming products, from controllers to adapters to all kinds of accessories. In fact, just recently, JYS has sent me another awesome gaming product of theirs called the wireless controller adapter. This small but cool looking USB device allows me to connect any controller to any game console. For example, if you wanted to connect a PS5 controller to your Nintendo Switch, you can totally do that. All you have to do is plug the adapter into your Switch console dock, press the sync button on both the adapter and controller, wait a few seconds, and boom, instant connection. Oh, and make sure to flip the switch on the side to NS mode. Don't forget that. Not only that, but you can do the same thing with a Wii U Pro controller as well. Look, I'm playing Bayonetta 3 with a Wii U controller, and it feels like 2014 all over again. Now, as you would have guessed, it works the same way with other consoles such as PS5, which means you can connect a Nintendo Switch Pro controller to your PS5 and use it to play games such as Shadow Warrior, for example. Once again, make sure to flip the switch to PS mode. Not to mention, you can also connect controllers manually by plugging them into the USB port on the back of the adapter with a charging cable. And before anyone asks, yes, you can sync Joy-Cons as well. First sync the left Joy-Con, then the right one, and now you can control your PS5 interface with Joy-Cons, or once again use them to play games like Shadow Warrior. Honestly, this feels like the closest thing to playing Shadow Warrior on Nintendo Switch. It doesn't actually use motion controls, I'm just playing it for the camera. But imagine if it did. Hopefully it'll happen for real someday. Oh, and not to mention, once again, you can sync a Wii U Pro controller to your PS5 as well. So if you wanted to play a game like, say, Happy's Humble Burger Farm with a Wii U controller for some reason, you can totally do that too. The possibilities are endless. Now, obviously, it works the same way with PC, Xbox One, and Series X, but sadly, I don't have an Xbox to demonstrate. Although, you can even use an Xbox 360 controller with it. However, the instructions say it strictly requires a wired 360 controller, so wireless with cable doesn't count. I learned that the hard way. Anyway, that was my brief sponsorship product review of JYS's wireless controller adapter. This thing is awesome, and I highly recommend it. If you're interested and want to purchase one of these products, I'll give you a link to an Amazon listing in the description below.
Welcome to Show Off Showdown! In this series, the fighters are called Show-Offs, and this is the series for the Show Off Showdown! Now let's meet the Show-Offs for tonight's showdown, shall we? Tonight, we have a battle of legends unlike any other between the Shadow Warrior and the No More Hero! That's right, Wang versus Travis Touchdown! They may not be the heroes we want, nor the heroes we need, but they're the heroes we get. So we might as well make the most of them.
Now, before we get to the pre-analysis, it's important to know that we will be excluding No More Heroes 3 completely, because Travis in No More Heroes 3 is so overpowered that he would basically destroy Wang, and it would be too much of a stomp in Travis's favor. So we decided to leave out the third game and focus specifically on Travis from No More Heroes 1, 2, and Travis Strikes Again, in order to make this battle more fair and balance things out. I just wanted to clarify that before we begin the pre-analysis.
So let's not waste any more time and get straight into it, shall we? Now without further ado, it's time for the Show Off Showdown pre-analysis!
This analysis on Travis Touchdown was provided by Ghost Host, the ghostly host with the most.
Hi, as you can see I'm not the usual person. My name is Ghost and I'm going over Travis Touchdown. Travis Touchdown, many things can be said about the man. He's a badass, simp, gamer, otaku, simp. He fights people to see if they're the shit, or if they're just plain old shit. Travis' story starts when he was young. His father and mother were killed by his own stepsister, Jean, who's related through Travis' father's blood. Travis was on his own until he met a sword master, Thunder Ryu, who Travis is trained with in swordsmanship and pro wrestling skills. During an online auction, Travis won a beam katana, a blade formed out of a light-based substance that cuts through people like butter. Kind of like a lightsaber, but with a hilt, or like, not a lightsaber, whatever. He went out to celebrate, and that's where he met the love of his life, Sylvia Crystal. She tricked a drunken Travis into joining the United Assassin Association to murder for money, as long as he killed number 11, Helter Skelter. Travis accepted, starting a long adventure of murder. Travis climbed to the top, fighting against ninjas, cyborgs, and a woman with a really large shopping cart. When Travis reached the top, he went against Darkstar, a man who claimed to be his father, but after he was murdered by Jean, she cleared up the confusion with a lengthy explanation. The two fought, with Jean getting the upper hand, punching a hole through him. Travis was saved by Shinobu, an assassin he spared earlier. Travis spent his winning time taking a dump until he was attacked by an assassin, but he was saved when his older brother Henry, who was shown taking one of Travis's kills, Dr. Let's Shake, Travis fought him in an epic battle that caused a painting to be made of it. 3 years after the first game, Travis was recognized as a hero, as his actions caused crime to decrease, being called the No More Hero or the Nameless King. One of the people Travis killed was the father of Jasper Bat Jr., who became a powerful and wealthy entrepreneur, who sent a hitman to kill Travis's best friends and game shop owner Bishop. Travis, in a rage, went out to get number 1 again, killed Jasper Bat Jr., and get Sylvia once and for all. Travis had to fight against cyborgs, and a girl with a flute that shoots bubbles, and a space Russian who is a ghost. This game's serious, it's weird. Travis and Sylvia got together, having 2 kids, Hunter and Jean. 7 years passed, with Travis moving away from his family to protect them from assassins that continued to go after him. During this time, he found out about the Death Balls, and he found out about Dr. Juvenile when he got a government weapon, the Death Drive Mark II. During a camping trip, Travis was attacked by Badman, the father of one of the assassins he killed when he started, Bad Girl. During the fight, the two turned on the Death Drive, sending the two into the game world. If they completed every game, they could use the 6 Death Balls to wish Bad Girl back to life. But one of the balls Travis got during his adventure was fake, as he used a cheat code to get it, turning Bad Girl into a dog, messing up the entire wish. After getting the final Death Ball and beating it, they finally awoken the giant dragon thing in the Death Balls and brought Bad Girl back to life. Travis isn't a badass otaku without any powers, though. Travis is most known for his fourth wall awareness, breaking the fourth wall for comedic value. He can teleport, move forward in time, he can kill people by singing, he can hurt ghosts and data, confused with Batman, and he has an intense aura that makes people afraid. Travis can resist the extreme temperatures and radiation of space. He can resist Margaret's song, which can kill people and put them to sleep. He can resist a scream that causes people to go insane, and he can walk in a place where time moves backwards normally. Travis is pretty strong as well. He shook a hotel while doing yoga. He easily can cut through people like butter with his beam katana, and he can fight Henry in an upgraded Let's Shake. You see, comparing the explosion Henry took to a wind turbine, which is around 380 feet, and compare it to the explosion, makes the explosion 2,566.41 feet long, and putting that into the explosion formula, converting feet into km, we get 0.01 megatons, or town level of strength for this explosion. And this is backed up with a not upgraded Let's Shake, causing earthquakes that could cause major damage, making it a 5.5 on the Richter scale, scaling him to 2.68 kilotons of TNT at a minimum, small town. And this is even mentioning an upgraded Let's Shake one-shotting other assassins who should be on par with Travis before they fought. For speed, Travis can hit bullets and baseball bats with his beam katana. He should be able to move as fast as Charlie McDonald, or at least react to him. See, Charlie McDonald flew to the exosphere, which is around 10,000 kilometers away from the ground, and it took him 5 seconds to reach that, and he truly would have to be flying at 5,877 times the speed of light. So Charlie looks like he weighs more than Travis, so it's fair to use Travis's own weight for a kinetic energy value, which comes out to 74 kilotons of TNT, or town. Travis is potentially faster too in his reactions, as he can dodge Destroy Man's lasers, which follows most of the properties of light lasers: straight beam, burning stuff, and not causing an explosion besides when it hits something that would normally fucking explode, and stuff like that. But Travis is very durable too. He can survive explosions, bullets, slashes, punches through the chest like he's Shao Kahn without going down. He can survive earthquakes from upgraded Let's Shake in a giant mech. He survived falling out of the sky, even from space too. Onto Travis's bread and butter though, his weapons. The Bloodberry Beam Katana is Travis's first weapon he won at the auction mentioned earlier. Tsubaki, a beam katana created by Dr. Naomi. This one has 3 upgraded forms. It has a thing to let it sense buried treasure, a greater, stronger beam, and a motherboard that makes it so the beam doesn't need to be shaken to be charged. The word I'm not going to attempt to pronounce is his motorcycle, which he could summon to himself. The Row is Nasty is a pair of dual katanas. Penny, I believe that's pronounced, it's probably not, is a 2-handed beam katana that increases and decreases in its length depending on Travis's ki. Travis's ki is measured by the amount of his health and his SSC gauge, which increases when he fights. Glastonbury is a giant mech with an even bigger beam katana, which he can summon to him with his motorcycle. Finally, the Death Glove and the Death Drive. This government weapon can bring Travis and whoever he wants into the game world, and one of the game worlds being the real world, so he could fuse the two together to give him all his powers from the Death Drive in the real world. Big, dumb, complicated thing here. This glove gives Travis several chips. These chips can have Travis toss people around, slow enemies down, shoot electricity from his hand, heal himself, create large barriers, create clones, create bombs, drain people's energy, and make a big old turret. When Travis has killed someone, he can enter a dark side mode. This has a lot of effects. Sometimes Travis doesn't even need to kill someone to activate it. Some of the effects are making Travis faster, shoot energy blast from his beam katana, shoot a large blast which liquidates enemies, or his most powerful one, Cranberry Chocolate Sundae. This makes Travis more brutal, killing people almost instantly, but it doesn't make him overconfident. Enemies during this state are frozen in fear. Travis is a skilled wrestler, knowing a lot of wrestling moves like Dragon Suplex, Armbar, Brainbuster, Tombstone Piledriver, Armbar, German Suplex, Armbar, Backdrop, Finisher, Armbar, Tiger Drive 98, Spinning Backbreaker Finisher, and the Armbar. Travis isn't perfect though. He can be very overconfident in his ability to kill, making jokes while fighting, which has gotten him in trouble a few times. He's very confident, turning his back to his opponents before they even fight. He has a hard time killing people he deems worthy, or children, or women. Travis has been known to heavily let his guard down, and his normal beam katanas need to be charged, so he needs to shake them to charge them up. But despite that, Travis is still the no more hero, the nameless king, the hero of Santa Destroy.
I have a very important question for all of you. Quite possibly the most important question that you will ever be asked in your entire life.
Who wants some Wang?
Lo Wang is the protagonist of Shadow Warrior, a 90s classic FPS that eventually got a modernized reboot just like Doom. In an earlier episode of Show Off Showdown, we saw the classic Lo Wang fight against Duke Nukem, Caleb, and Bombshell in a 4-way battle royale. However, for this analysis, we'll be focusing specifically on the modern Lo Wang from the Shadow Warrior reboot trilogy, which is a completely separate continuity from the classic Shadow Warrior. Just wanted to make that clear. Lo Wang is a professional assassin and modern-day ninja, as well as a walking penis joke, not to mention a comic book nerd. Similar to his 90s counterpart, Lo Wang is fearless and headstrong, as well as arrogant and overconfident with a pretty big ego. He tends to make a lot of wisecracks and crude jokes, often acting like an immature, pervy goofball. But at the same time, he takes his job as an assassin very seriously, is quite efficient at it, and takes pride in his work. Though he can also be very reckless and carefree with his actions, often having little regard for his surroundings or the consequences his actions may bring. While Lo Wang is not really a sociopath, he does kind of lack a conscience, often having very little remorse or empathy for the people he kills. As long as he gets paid, he doesn't care who he has to kill, so long as they're not innocent, of course. Sometimes Lo Wang can be a bit of an a-hole, but he acknowledges it and knows when to stop being one. To sum him up in as few words as possible, Lo Wang is basically Chinese Deadpool. Now, the plot of Shadow Warrior is a lot more lengthy and convoluted than expected, especially in the second game, so instead of spending an hour reading through unnecessary details, I'm just going to try to quickly sum up the important gist of the story specifically related to Lo Wang himself. Okay, so Lo Wang worked for a powerful corporate businessman named Orochi Zilla, who had tasked Lo Wang with bringing him an ancient relic sword called the Nobutsuru Kage. Things didn't go the way Lo Wang had planned. He lost the sword, and in the process, Lo Wang met Hoji, a mysterious yet annoyingly arrogant demonic entity who offered to help Lo Wang retrieve the Nobutsuru Kage. His spirit spirit merged with Lo Wang's body, and the two formed a pact, which I'll talk more about later. Quick tidbit about Hoji. He is one of the Ancients, a group of demonic godlike beings who ruled another dimension called the Shadow Realm, which is kind of like hell, but isn't at the same time. TLDR, Hoji was the black sheep of the Ancients. He betrayed his brothers, and they banished him to the human world, and he was stuck there for over 200 years with no memory of what he did that got him there. Okay, now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's get back to Wang. Anyway, turns out the Nobutsuru Kage is the only weapon capable of killing the Ancients, and not to mention it's split into 3 separate pieces, so Lo Wang needed to find them all ASAP. On top of that, there was a large-scale demonic invasion sent from the Shadow Realm, so Lo Wang had to deal with an army of demons while looking for the swords. Long story short, he eventually finds them all and reforms the legendary Nobutsuru Kage. He finds out his boss Zilla made a deal with the devil and had to fight him, and then traveled to the Shadow Realm to confront Hoji's brothers, who unleashed a demon apocalypse on Earth. Turns out all of Hoji's brothers were major a-holes, and the Ancients ruler Enra was the worst of them. Without going into extensive details on the context and story, Hoji sacrificed himself to give the Nobutsuru Kage to Lo Wang so he could use it to kill Enra and end all this crap. Not to mention something about Hoji's sister in a coma, but that's not really important right now. Now as for Shadow Warrior 2, oh boy, this won't be easy to sum up, but I'll try. Okay, so in Shadow Warrior 2, the Yakuza boss hires Lo Wang to rescue her granddaughter Kamiko from Zilla, which he does, but turns out Kamiko's body was possessed by a demon, so her mentor, Master Smith, had to take her soul out of her body and put it in Lo Wang's, so she's basically riding shotgun inside his head throughout the whole game. The plot of the game basically revolves around trying to find a cure to restore Kamiko's body so she can put her soul back into her body. That's about the gist of it. There's a massive crap ton of convoluted plot details that I won't get into here, or at least not much. Anyway, turns out that Kamiko was the daughter of Mezu, Hoji's brother and one of the Ancients, as well as the guardian of the Outer Gates, which is the link between the Shadow Realm and the human world. Long story short, Mezu intended to sacrifice his daughter in order to permanently seal the gates to stop the constant demonic invasion and prevent both worlds from being destroyed. However, he needed Kamiko's soul and body intact, but her body was stolen by his sister Amiona, who went crazy and seeked to destroy the gates and corrupt the human world with demons as revenge for the death of her brothers Hoji and Enra, as well as end all of creation, and with it herself, to finally end her miserable existence. Obviously, that's the exact opposite of what everybody wanted, so to stop the world from ending, Lo Wang had to kill Amiona. Once all that's said and done, Kamiko accepts her destiny and willingly fuses her soul to the gates to seal them. But in an unexpected turn of events, the gates suddenly explode open and out pops a dragon, which leads directly into Shadow Warrior 3. Thankfully, the third game story isn't quite as confusing to understand. Okay, so Shadow Warrior 3 takes place 3 months after the events of the second game, where the dragon that escaped the Shadow Realm had basically destroyed everything. And I mean everything. Lo Wang sulks in depression after failing to kill the dragon numerous times, until his former enemy slash boss Zilla teams up with him to take the dragon down. They meet up with a sorceress named Monako, who does a ritual to extract the power from Hoji's mask so they could use it to kill the dragon, but in doing so, she somehow brings Hoji's soul back to life. Realizing the ritual would kill Hoji again, Lo Wang steals the mask and abandons Zilla's original plan. Still intent on killing the dragon, Lo Wang and Hoji form a plan to stop the dragon by stealing one of its eggs and infusing Hoji's soul inside the egg so he'd be reborn with a new powerful physical form. Turns out the dragon was the source of the Ancient's godlike power, and the dragon ate all of Hoji's brothers, so he's the only Ancient left. Now, without going into too much detail on the plot and whatnot, I'm just gonna skip ahead a bit and say that eventually Lo Wang, Hoji, Zilla, and Monako meet up and form a new plan. Hoji willingly transfers all of his godlike powers into his mask, rendering him mortal, so they could use it to defeat the dragon. Lo Wang goes inside the dragon's body in order to destroy its heart with the mask. The final boss was the grotesque core of the dragon's heart, which is apparently sentient. Lo Wang finally kills the dragon, saves humanity and the world, or whatever's left of it. The heroes have a nice dragon meat picnic together, happy ending for the most part. Okay, now that I've finally finished summing up Lo Wang's story as short as I possibly could, it's time to finally discuss what the Wang is capable of. In terms of Lo Wang's fighting skills, being a professional assassin slash ninja, Lo Wang is a highly well-trained martial artist in both ninjutsu and kung fu and was taught from a young age. In fact, it was implied that Lo Wang had created his own compound martial arts fighting style called the Way of the Wang.
This, way of the Wang you spoke to him about?
The way of the Wang is long and hard and ribbed for her pleasure.
I see.
Hey, it sounds a lot better than Dan Hibiki's Sekio, that's for sure. Anyway, Lo Wang is also both an incredibly skilled swordsman and marksman, capable of wielding and quickly mastering any kind of blade or firearms, which leads me into Wang's arsenal. And boy, does the Wang have one big arsenal. Lo Wang's extensive arsenal of weapons includes the following: a powerful revolver with rapid fire function, dual Uzis with laser sight, a crossbow that doubles as a sticky bomb launcher, an ugly arse shotgun that can fire from all 4 barrels at once, a flamethrower that can also launch fire bombs, a rocket launcher that fires 3 rockets at once, and it can even guide them manually, a severed demon head that shoots blazing rays out its eyes, and a demon heart that when crushed in hand causes a nearby enemy to die of an instant heart attack and then their body explodes. Not to mention the heart could also summon a ghostly clone of Lo Wang in the original Shadow Warrior, and since it's technically the same heart, we'll factor in this ability as well. In Shadow Warrior 3, Wang has a grappling hook that can pull enemies towards him Scorpion style, a precise 6-shooter revolver that can set enemies on fire, dual machine guns called sidekicks that electrocute enemies, a grenade launcher with proximity grenades, the shuriken splitter which fires buzzsaws that bounce off surfaces and rips enemies to shreds, the basilisk, a powerful railgun similar to the ballista from Doom Eternal, firing concentrated explosive laser-like energy shots that pierce through multiple enemies, and it even slows down time for a brief moment when firing. Not to mention it also freezes enemies in its surrounding radius. And last but not least, the Riot Gun. One of the greatest shotguns in video game history, as it's basically a rapid-fire Gatling shotgun, mowing down any enemy that gets in the way of the Wang. Not to mention, Lo Wang is sorta like the Mortal Kombat version of MacGyver, as he can rip off his enemies' body parts and use them as weapons, which has resulted in all kinds of crazy effects. As for the weapons from Shadow Warrior 2, well, because the second game is more of a looter shooter similar to Borderlands, there are a lot, and I mean a lot of weapons. Way too many to list here, and it'd be kinda pointless since most of them are weaker than others, so I'll just quickly mention a few of the most powerful weapons in the game worth noting. The Fire Frost Power Glove, which fires a blazing heat ray that incinerates anything it touches. The Agent of Chaos, an insanely powerful Gatling gun infused with chi, which gradually does more precise damage the longer you hold the trigger. The Blizzard Blades, which instantly freezes any enemy they slash. The Fist of Gozu, a big axe that was wielded by a god that can pretty much insta-kill almost any enemy. The Destroyer of Realms, an overpowered demonic rocket launcher that fires devastating explosives so powerful it may only be rivaled by nuclear weapons. Oh, and not to mention, all of these weapons can be upgraded and customized with elemental effects such as fire, ice, acid, poison, and electricity, which Lo Wang can infuse into his sword as well. Now last but not least, the Arm of Orochi, an insanely powerful electric plasma energy sword that puts any lightsaber to shame, capable of firing razor-sharp energy waves and slicing through just about anything, and on top of that, its attacks are unblockable, making it quite literally unstoppable. You know what the crazy thing is? This isn't even Lo Wang's strongest sword. Out of all the many different blades in the Wang's arsenal, none of them compare to the legendary Nobutsura Kage. As mentioned earlier, this ancient powerful mystic blade is the most powerful sword in the world, and it was specifically designed to kill gods. Any beings from the Shadow Realm would be scorched by its touch, and Hoji died simply by touching it. Not only can the sword kill pretty much anything that its blade touches, but just a swing of the sword can unleash waves of energy that insta-kill and slice through anything in their path. The Nobutsura Kage knows no equal. However, in the second game, unfortunately, the Nobutsura Kage began to shrink in size and lose its power after Lo Wang had used it to kill Enra, the ruler of the Shadow Realm. Master Smith attempted to reforge and restore the sword to its former glory, but unfortunately he was unable to. Instead, he reformed its remains into a medallion that could be fused to another sword and inherit some of its power. It seemed as if the Nobutsura Tsurakage would never again meet its full potential, and the legendary sword was gone forever. That is until one fateful Christmas day, when Santa Claus gave Lo Wang a very special present as a thank you for killing his evil counterpart Krampus and saving Christmas. Yes, this happened. Now, what is this special present, you may ask? Well,
on the first day of Christmas, old Saint Nick gave the Wang a brand new Nova Tsurakage.
that's right, it's back. Although it's not the original Nova Tsurakage, and it's technically a replica, but it's still the strongest sword in the whole game, and given that Santa is a saint, it's not too far-fetched to imagine that Santa made it just as powerful as the original Nova Tsurakage, or at least close to it. And not to mention, once again, Lo Wang has an amulet made from the remains of the original Kage that he could simply just fuse to the new one and combine its power. So in a way, it's almost like it hasn't changed at all, though perhaps that's debatable. Okay, I think I've talked enough about weapons. Lo Wang's got a lot more up his sleeves than just guns and blades, so it's about time we talk about his unique abilities. When Lo Wang first formed a pact with Hoji, he amplified his chi, and thus Lo Wang was able to manipulate and control chi in many different ways. His chi abilities include being able to heal himself and regenerate all of his body's cells anytime he wants, and forming a protective chi barrier around himself, which is even tough enough to shield attacks from gods. He can release a chi blast that pushes and knocks back enemies, and it can also nullify an enemy's emotional state, taking away their rage and eagerness to attack and subduing them into a more calm and vulnerable state. He can unleash a wave of energy that traps enemies, levitating and suspending them in mid-air completely immobilized so Lo Wang can dice and batter them up like meat piñatas. He can turn himself invisible, making him completely undetectable, and he even becomes temporarily stronger and does more damage while invisible. His chi can also summon deadly spikes from the ground that impale enemies instantly. When Kamiko's soul was trapped inside Lo Wang's body, she taught him how to use chi to teleport, and he can travel fairly far distances while teleporting. Lo Wang can even enter sort of a rage mode called Shadow Fury, which not only makes Lo Wang temporarily more aggressive, but it also vastly increases his strength and striking power, durability, and chi absorption, and it even slows down time for his enemies around him, making them easier targets. Not to mention, Wang can swiftly dash in short bursts so fast it's almost as if he's teleporting. But one of Lo Wang's most important chi-related abilities is sucking out and absorbing his enemy's souls. That's right, you heard me. He can do this in multiple ways, such as siphoning or leeching on his enemy's chi and or life force while attacking them, collecting their souls after killing them, or even physically absorbing them instantly by crushing his enemy's skulls. Every time he absorbs an enemy's soul, it instantly regenerates and strengthens his body and soul. This is especially useful when he's close to death. In fact, when Lo Wang is just mere inches away from death, he enters a state where he suddenly becomes even stronger for a brief period of time and more capable of quickly killing an enemy and stealing their soul to save his skin just before he could die. So in kind of a similar fashion to Ryuko from Kill la Kill, the closer Lo Wang is to death, the stronger he becomes. And when he's just an inch away from death, that's when he's at his strongest and inflicts the most devastating damage on his enemies. So if you're gonna kill the Wang, you better do it quick before he kills you first and steals your soul. Now in terms of physicality, despite being human, Lo Wang has shown insanely impressive physical feats to the point where he's basically superhuman. Let's start with speed. To say Lo Wang has the speed and reflexes of a ninja would be an understatement, as Lo Wang has shown capable of blocking and dodging bullets, missiles, plasma, lightning, and there's even a couple instances where Lo Wang has dodged lasers, even at a near point blank range. So Lo Wang can move, react, and strike at around light speed. Now let's discuss Lo Wang's raw strength, power, and destructive capability. Usually those are two separate categories, but they're kinda linked here. Not only is Lo Wang strong enough to easily slice people clean in half with a casual swing and overpower dozens of henchmen at once, but he's also strong enough to rip off demons' limbs and crush their skulls with his bare hands. From average human-sized demons to gargantuan behemoth demons, Lo Wang can rip and tear them limb from limb and physically overpower them without breaking a sweat. Lo Wang is also strong enough to slice through armor and machines made of metals as tough as steel and titanium, which would require at least 63,000 psi to break. If that's not impressive enough, Wang has even shown capable of going toe-to-toe and trading blows with the ancient gods I mentioned earlier, damaging and destroying their godly armor even without the Nobitsura Kage. They should physically be at the very least building level via size alone, if not far greater than that. In fact, the goddess Amiona was said to be strong and powerful enough to destroy all of humanity, and it's not too far-fetched considering that Amiona's tears could supply the entire Shadow Realm world with rain, and if she cries for too long, her tears could flood the entire world. And that's just when she's crying, let alone actively trying to kill people or destroy the world. Considering that Wang was able to take on and eventually kill her when she was at her strongest and most powerful state, it's not too far-fetched to imagine that Wang should be at least a fraction as strong and powerful as Amiona is. Oh, and not to mention Amiona and the ancient god's power comes directly from the dragon I mentioned earlier, which had casually devoured entire cities with ease, as well as leveled mountains, swallowed oceans, and even destroyed half the planet to the point where the earth became uninhabitable. While Wang has admitted that he was no match for the dragon, and it had eaten and killed all the gods, but it's not hard to imagine the gods possessing at least a very small fraction of the dragon's power, especially considering that Amiona could once again flood an entire world with rain by crying, and destroy all of humanity at her fullest. And she has a closer link to the dragon than any other god. While Wang might not be as powerful as her, especially since it took him a little while to take her down, but the fact that he was able to fight on par with and eventually kill her, it's not far-fetched to imagine Wang's potential strength and power being at least somewhat comparable to her and the other gods. Now you're probably wondering, just how could a mortal human like Wang be that strong or powerful? Well, it's hard to say, but it may possibly be linked with Wang's ability to absorb enemy souls, which further strengthens his body and soul. And considering that Wang has killed hundreds of thousands of demons, or maybe even millions of demons in a span of 5 years, that's a lot of souls to absorb, and who knows how strong Wang's become at that point. I think I've said enough here. Now, if you thought the Wang's strength was impressive, let's take a look at his durability. Wang is surprisingly way tougher than you'd expect a mortal to be. Not only does he wear a suit of protective armor, but his body is tough enough to survive bullets, bombs, missiles, acid, plasma, lasers, lava, and devastating attacks from the gods I mentioned earlier. He could survive falling from literal mountain heights of thousands of feet and live to tell the tale, but by far Wang's most impressive durability feat of all would be at the end of Shadow Warrior 3, when Wang used Hoji's mask to destroy the dragon's heart from the inside, which created a massive magical explosion that caused the dragon's body to fracture and or explode in half. Not only is it confirmed that this dragon is the size of a large mountain, but the dragon's body itself is tougher than any natural material on Earth, as its scales were said to be impenetrable, and no man-made weapon on Earth is capable of penetrating the dragon's body, not even nuclear weapons. Zilla even used his billions of dollars and genius intellect to create a particle beam death ray and or doomsday device more powerful than any other weapon on Earth specifically designed to kill the dragon, but even that didn't work. When taking that into account, it's hard to say exactly how powerful this explosion was, but for simplicity's sake, let's just lowball it and say the amount of destructive energy it would take to fracture the dragon's body like this would be roughly the same amount required to fragment a large mountain. While I wouldn't consider the Versus Battles wiki to be the most reliable source for information, this article was pretty much the best I could find in terms of fragmenting a mountain rather than completely destroying it. Anyway, there's a good chance that I might have made a mistake here, but after digging through this info and a few other sources trying to get a straightforward answer, the best conclusion I've found is that the amount of energy required to fragment a large mountain, and therefore the dragon, would be somewhere between 100 and 125 megatons of TNT, which is the equivalent of 2 to 2.5 Tsar nukes. Considering that Wang was right in the middle of this explosion and somehow survived, dang, that is one tough Wang. Now, as largely impressive as the Wang is, he's not without his fair share of flaws and weaknesses. As mentioned earlier, Wang is pretty cocky, arrogant, and overconfident with a big ego. He tends to make a lot of wisecracks or jokes while fighting, which could potentially make him seem predictable or exploitable in some cases, especially when he underestimates enemies. His reckless behavior and impulses can often lead to disastrous consequences, and while he is able to heal his wounds and injuries with his chi in mid-combat, he needs to focus his chi manually to heal himself, and it is possible for his enemies to kill him faster than he can heal himself. Trust me, I know. Eventually, Wang was able to regenerate health automatically, but it's a lot slower than manual chi healing. But despite all of that, Wang still earns his reputation and title as the Shadow Warrior for a good reason. Like a lot of Wangs, he's hard as a rock, hard to put down, full of intense blood pumping, and ready for action. Can't believe I just said that. You know what they say, if you mess with the bull, you get the Wang.
This is it, folks. Who will be the winner of this ultimate crazy epic showdown? It's time to find out. Now, without further ado, it's time for the Show-Off 2 Showdown!
Get ready for the next battle.
What the hell are you supposed to be? Some type of Chinese knockoff of me?
Very funny, asshole. FYI, I've been around since long before your otaku ass was even born. Besides, my hair is better than yours.
Oh yeah? Well, at least my game devs didn't get all woke and fire my voice actor for being white.
Seriously, who does this jerk think he is?
I know, right? This guy's an asshole!
You had to make it personal, huh? Let's see if your pretty boy ass can handle the Wang.
I ain't gay, but bring it on, fuckhead! some Wang!
Mess with the bull, you get the Wang.
And the Wang scores a touchdown!
Okay, now before we get to the post-analysis, I would like to once again emphasize that for this battle, we were strictly using No More Heroes 1, 2, and TSA Travis in order to make this battle more fair and evenly balanced out. We excluded No More Heroes 3 because Travis had gained an insanely massive power upgrade in the third game, to the point where he's practically a god and has become so overpowered that he would basically annihilate Lo Wang, so it would have been way too big of a stomp in Travis's favor. In fact, if we did use No More Heroes 3 Travis, then the battle would have most likely ended like this. You had to make it personal, huh? Let's see if you're pretty boy.
I guess the Wang wasn't up to Scott.
That was a terrible joke.
I don't care. Wait. How can I hear you?
Oh, after you killed Lo Wang, I transported myself into you somehow, so now I'm going to complain about every dumb joke you make.
Oh, motherfucker!
Okay, now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, it's time to discuss how and why Lo Wang wins this epic, legendary, heroic showdown. First off, let's discuss who's more skilled and experienced. Well, both Wang and Travis are highly skilled and experienced assassins, both nigh unbeatable with a sword, but when it comes to formal fighting skill, this is where the Wangs got the edge. While Travis is a fairly skilled wrestler, he doesn't have nearly the amount of martial arts training and experience as Lo Wang, who was highly well trained in both ninjutsu and kung fu from a young age, so he's far more skilled in hand-to-hand or close quarters combat in general. If they both end up losing their swords in mid-fight, Travis might get in a suplex or two, but Wang would pretty much just be beating Travis's arse to the ground for the most part. Now in terms of their trademark weaponry, as cool as Travis's line of beam katanas are, Lo Wang has a much bigger and more overwhelming arsenal. Although now that I think about it, Travis is fast enough to block and dodge the barrage of ammunition, rendering most, if not all, of Lo Wang's guns useless. But even aside from the guns, Lo Wang has a wide variety of many different powerful blades, including an insanely powerful electric plasma energy sword that could cut through almost anything and fire piercing energy waves that are deemed unblockable. To be honest, I don't think I even need to mention the Nobusura Kage now, do I? You know, the overpowered mystic blade designed to kill gods and whatnot? I think I've said enough. Now let's discuss speed. This is quite easily the most even category between the two, as both Wang and Travis have shown capable of dodging lasers, putting both of their reaction and combative speed at around light speed. However, Lo Wang may have a slight edge, as he is shown capable of dodging lasers from a near point-blank range, making his light speed reaction time a bit more solid than Travis's, but for the most part, they're still pretty closely matched when it comes to speed. Now let's discuss strength. As Ghost Host mentioned earlier, scaling Travis to Henry puts Travis's strength and striking power at roughly a large town level, while Wang on the other hand has gone toe-to-toe and traded blows with literal gods whose physical strength and power is likely well above most, if not all, of Travis's opponents he's faced throughout the first 3 games, such as Amiona, who could flood a whole world just by crying, and near the end of the game was powerful enough to destroy all of humanity. Even if Lo Wang isn't exactly as powerful as her, he was still able to physically fight on par with and eventually kill her without the Nobusura Kage, FYI, which is arguably more impressive than anything Travis has shown. Not to mention, all of the demon souls Lo Wang has absorbed that strengthen his body and soul should play a fair factor here as well. Now let's discuss durability. While Travis has survived a fall from space and huge explosions that put him at a large town level, which is pretty impressive in its own right, but it's kinda hard for Travis to compete with Lo Wang's best durability feat, surviving a massive explosion that blew apart a massive godlike dragon the size of a large mountain, which I've estimated to require at least 100 to 125 megatons of TNT. This makes the Wang so tough that Travis's options for putting the Wang down are extremely limited. He definitely wouldn't be able to kill him in one hit, to say the least. That's for dang sure. Now in terms of their unique powers and abilities, Wang and Travis have quite a few closely similar abilities that would pretty much counter one another for the most part, like Travis's Dark Side mode and Wang's Shadow Fury mode mode are very similar to one another in quite a few ways, as they both vastly increase their speed, strength, and striking power, and they both slow down their surrounding enemies, so they both be moving at a relatively even pace while unleashing their full rage on one another. Speaking of which, while part of Travis's will to fight is fueled by bloodthirsty rage, Low Wang's Chi Blast could nullify all of Travis's emotions, take away his rage, and subdue him into a more calm and tranquil state, rendering him vulnerable and likely lead to his demise. Unless Travis has some kind of immunity to mental or emotional manipulation that I'm not aware of, there's not really much he can do in that state to prevent Lo Wang from trapping and immobilizing him in midair and turning him into a meat pinata. Now, on another note, Travis's ability to sense aura could possibly allow him to detect Lo Wang when he turns invisible, though that's debatable, and his ability to harm metaphysical entities such as ghosts could likely allow him to penetrate Lo Wang's Chi Shield, although considering his Chi Shield can absorb attacks from gods, it might not be as easy as it looks on paper. Oh, and not to mention, Travis has a fair amount of Chi flowing through his body, and Lo Wang, being a master of manipulating Chi in many ways, could very easily siphon Travis's Chi and use it to further strengthen his many Chi powers and abilities. Now, even if Travis was able to inflict substantial damage on Lo Wang when given chance, Lo Wang could easily heal himself with Chi on the fly, and even if Travis was somehow able to bypass that and do enough damage to fatally wound Lo Wang to the point of almost killing him, Lo Wang enters a stage where he's much stronger when he's extremely close to death, and there's not really much Travis can do to stop Lo Wang from quickly decapitating his head and absorbing his soul before Travis could even get a chance to finish him off. Now, it may be possible that Travis might have a couple tricks up his sleeve that in very specific circumstances could possibly give him a win, no guarantee though, but in the majority of possible scenarios, Lo Wang pulls the win more often than not, especially in a random encounter battle with no prep time. I think I've said enough. So, in the end, looks like Travis just couldn't handle the Wang. The winner of this battle is Lo Wang. Now, before we wrap this up, I want to give a very special thanks and shout out to Ghost Host for covering all of the research and pre-analysis for Travis in this episode. I'd also like to thank Maximum Rebo for animating the retro game style fight scene in the middle of this battle, as well as Sparkles for animating the alternate ending with NMH3 Travis. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to give a special shout out to the voice actors, Wick Watwest for voicing Travis Touchdown in the opening scene, and Sparkles for voicing the brief Kamiko cameo. Oh, and not only that, but Travis actually had another voice actor, and a really good one named Michael Nguyen, who is a very talented voice actor who definitely deserves more recognition, and I had an incredibly difficult time choosing between him and Wick Watwest. So to ensure Michael too gets the spotlight he deserves, I've made an alternate version of the opening dialogue with Michael as the voice of Travis, and I highly recommend checking it out. I've linked it in the description below. Anyway, all of these people played a great part in making this battle happen, so please do yourself and them a favor and go check out their channels and subscribe.
What the hell are you supposed to be? Some kind of Chinese knockoff of me?
Oh, and one more thing. For those of you who don't already know, I now officially have a Patreon. If you want to show your support and join the RCMP, as in Royal Canadian Mounted Patrons, then that would be so awesome, and I would really appreciate it. Members of the RCMP will have beneficial access to future episodes of Show Off Showdown and other videos before they're officially released, as well as exclusive access to special posts and videos that can only be viewed on Patreon.
Join the RCMP, and the first thing you'll learn is a nice shiny badge. Next time on Show Off Showdown!
I'm not gonna hurt you. Looked like you needed some help. Don't touch me. He likes to smile, and he kills anything that moves. Here goes nothing.
got any ideas for Show Off Showdown? Then let me know in the comments below, and hopefully, I just might do them. Now stay tuned for the next episode of Show Off Showdown!